Welcome to the third episode of Craft Entries, the podcast about Craft CMS and web development. My name is Thomas Sausen, and finally we can talk about Craft CMS 4. The long wait has come to an end, and so the latest version of Craft was released on Star Wars Day 2022. I believe it was .or 2019 in Montreal when Brendan Kelly announced Craft CMS 4, planned for 2020 at the time, but then the pandemic turned all our lives upside down and significantly contributed to the postponement. Now it's 2022, and almost 2.5 years later after the announcement, the new version is finally here. It should be noted that Craft 3.5, 3.6 and 3.7 brought some massive changes. Nevertheless, it's nice when the first number before the dot changes. I want to thank the Pixel and Tonic team for their work over the last few years. I like the previous updates, and Craft 4 is also a great release. Unfortunately, I also noticed that some things announced for Craft 4 at .all 2019 are not yet part of the 4.0 release. New UI elements in the field layouts were promised, grid, horizontal rule and field sets, but unfortunately we still have to wait for field sets. On the other hand, we have had grid and horizontal rules since 2020, as these new features already came with Craft 3.5. Large parts of the community have wished for nestable metrics fields. The famous metrics in metrics wishes since 2014. Metrics in metrics was planned for Craft 4 and ended up not being included. Possibly this feature will still be delivered in a 4.x release. The different views for the element index views are also not yet finished. Planned were table, tree, gallery, calendar and board as additional views. But what is in Craft 4? Quite a lot. Since Craft's unveiling 9 years ago, the creators behind the CMS have focused on a good user experience for content managers. Content teams should easily manage multi-layered content models daily without increasing training. Content in Craft sometimes has complex relationships, multiple categories, metrics fields and files. Having all of this maintainable in a user-friendly way in the admin without performance issues is a challenge. Fortunately, Craft 4 features the most significant innovations in precisely these areas. Conditional fields. Field layouts and tabs within the admin can now be shown and hidden if a specific condition is met. For example, you could display a call to action button only if another field is filled. Anyone using WordPress with advanced custom fields will already be familiar with these features, and with Craft version 4 it is part of the core. The new filtering of entry elements in the control panel is helpful, especially for projects with many entries or many different editors. Thanks to the user-defined filtering of element indexes, all entries of an author can be displayed dynamically. Or you could filtering of all entries linked to another section, or you can filter by dates. It's quite awesome. Multiple filters can also be linked together to allow extensive queries. So let's talk about user management, there are several minor tweaks regarding user management, but they are all beneficial. Users can now manage address fields that plugins like Craft Commerce can access. Also, users no longer have a single field each for first name and last name, but simply the full name field, from which first and last names can then be extracted for sorting purposes. Inactive users can now manage users representing a person or entity, but do not require login credentials, and users can now set their formatting language to any known language, not just the one for which the control panel has been translated to. Craft CMS 4 also improves file management, so assets. For example, volumes no longer have associated types and are instead assigned directly to a file system. Image transforms can now be assigned to a separate file system. For example, the original image could use a non-public file system, while the transforms use a public file system. Setting a focus point is now no longer possible exclusively in the image editor, but already in the preview window. So quite a nice little enhancement, I would say. Otherwise, there is finally a native alt text field for images. Not the most significant change, but at least one less field to create once working with images in the CMS. Unfortunately, the native alt text field is not translatable to multiple languages. This feature is only planned for Craft 5. So, multilingual websites should continue to use a separate custom field for the alt text of images. Craft 4 brings Laravel Collections for data arrays to the CMS. Item queries now include a collect method that returns query results as one of these collections instead of an array. So you could write setPost equal craft.entries.section.block.collect. And yeah, I missed out all the brackets and so because it's just a podcast. Collections also support eager loading and are therefore suitable for files. While in Craft 3 the image URL was retrieved within an array, this is now done via a collection if only the first image is to be displayed. And so you could write entry.image.collect.first.url. And yeah, I missed out the brackets too. But you get the point, I hope. Other changes. It is possible with Craft 4 to save categories as drafts, bringing categories closer to entries in terms of functionality and flexibility. Craft now requires PHP 8, allowing developers to use several new language features. Craft now includes a built-in money field type and a new trick filter money, useful in e-commerce environments. For example, if a currency-dependent display of money amounts is required. Environment variables can override most general configuration settings and database connection settings. Site status can also be set with environment variables. It is now possible to register custom image transformers that no longer use the built-in GD and ImageMagick based transformers. The cache tags now keep tracks of all external JavaScript and CSS resources that have been cached and re-register them the next time the page is loaded. And finally, Craft CMS now sends emails using Symfony Mailer instead of Swift Mailer. So, conclusion. Craft CMS 4 is a good update, even if the prominent new features were missing. The conditional fields are the closest to fall into this category, I think. All the improvements to the CMS ensure that it will be even more polished. Optimized accessibility in the control panel meets better performance when creating drafts and revisions. Filtering entry items allow editors to find specific entries that match their chosen criteria more quickly. The integration of conditional fields also dramatically improves the author's experience. Developers will be pleased with the new flexible assets, better caching, the ability to set more environment variables, or simplified Twig code with collections. The whole is more than the sum of its parts, and Craft now offers an excellent workflow for editors and developers. That should have been it for this week. If you want more Craft CMS news, follow me on Twitter at Craft Entries. Thank you for listening. Until next time, your Thomas.